Interested in raising backyard chickens? Urban farm expert Naomi Montaker addresses some of the key essentials to know. Bringing the people behind our food to life.
When you're trying to decide why to have chickens, often people will end up having a lot of talks with their family members, sometimes involving friends, maybe neighbors, and other people that you know that have chickens already. One of the most wonderful things is that having chickens is really inexpensive. So sometimes people will compare them to having a cat or a dog, but they're less likely to snuggle up with you and watch a movie or curl up at the foot of your bed. But a really good thing is that they're super entertaining outside when you're spending time in your garden, having dinner out there, relaxing. They give you a lot of fertilizer for your garden and your compost. And then they also provide you with really delicious, nutritious eggs. One of the things when you're getting chickens is to think about how long did they live. We know how long cats and dogs live, but a chicken, it's kind of a strange thing. Does it live for just a little bit of time, more like a hamster, or does it live for a long time like a cat might live? And the answer is that it's kind of in between there. So chickens are the most productive in their first 2 or 3 years. When they get to about 5, their egg laying will definitely be tapering down, but if they're still kept in lots of good food, yummy treats, water, and taken care of the way that they should be, they can continue laying their whole life. It will just continue to slow down. So it's easy for them to live into more dog range of, say, 12 years or low teens. They can live up into their 20s, but it's going to be more rare. And at the same time, when they're 5 or 6, it's possible they could run into health problems and pass away a little earlier. One of the other things to think about is that there's a seasonality with eggs, the way that there's a seasonality with fruits and vegetables. Chickens need at least 14 hours of daylight to produce eggs. So in the winter months, we often have pretty short days. The higher the latitude you get, the shorter that day gets, the less eggs are going to be produced. So there will usually be a solid 2 months where you might not get any eggs at all. And it's at a time of year when you're wanting to eat a lot of quiches and pancakes and you're spending a lot of time inside. So it can be kind of a frustrating, strange thing to learn in the beginning and to realize that there's something to that Easter egg hunt where in the spring the days are getting longer, there's lots of greens and seeds and bugs out, and that's when chickens are really getting into the swing of things and will really pick up production and produce heavily through the summer, tapering in the fall. Other things on their productive side, they're born with about 4,000 viable eggs. So that's also something that, depending if their life is long, they have a chance at laying you a lot of amazing eggs. Again, commercially, they're only kept about 2 or 3 years, those being the maximum production for the backyard chicken flock. Some things that people do if they want to have eggs over an extended period of time at home is that if your county allows, or if you get a permit to have additional chickens beyond Multnoma's 3 chicken rule, you could end up getting 2 or 3 chicks to start, and then in a year or 2, you might in another spring get another couple chicks. And then you'll introduce those when they're old enough to your grown-up chickens, and you'll have chickens laying at different times basically throughout their livelihood. So as your initial chickens get older, you've got these newer chicks that are coming on into their teenage laying cycle and will lay lots of eggs. And so that's another way to kind of balance things out without having too many chickens all at once. One of the other topics that you'll probably end up talking about is whether you're going to raise chicks from their day old or a few days old little fluffy chick bodies, or whether you're going to get teenage hens. We've got some teenagers walking around out here, so that's another option, is that you can get birds that are what's called a pullet, which is that teenage age. Technically, a chicken is a teenager their whole first year of life after they're a baby chick for the first couple months. But we often refer to them as pullets when they're between 2 to 6 months, which is the age that they're no longer a chick, but they're not yet laying. They can lay as early as 4 months. Later 6 months, not too unusual either. It's often due to when they're born in the spring. So if a baby chick is born earlier in the spring, say mid-February, they're more likely to start laying in 4 months because the days have been increasing while they're growing. So they've got a lot of daylight and they'll develop more quickly than a chicken that's even born, say, in the end of May. Will develop more slowly, might lay as early as Thanksgiving, but might wait until Christmas. When you have chicks in your house, it's a really fun thing, but a little bit more commitment. So there are some people that say, I just want to get the teenage pullet chicken because I can get them at about 4 months old. I'll know by that time that they're not a rooster because they'll usually be crowing or showing a lot of visible signs of being a rooster by then, especially if they're a standard hen. And I don't want to have them in my house. I'm going to have a coop ready to go outside, and my chickens are just going to go inside of it. Sometimes people have travel that's coming up in the spring, a number of reasons why they might not want or be able to have baby chicks in their house. If you do decide to have baby chicks in your house, it's really fun. So I will say that. It's adorable. When you first get them, there'll be these little tiny puffs of downy feathers. They're super sweet. Before they have feathers, actually, just their downy fluff. And they will often just kind of be sitting there peeping, looking around. They might be eating or drinking, and then suddenly they're just totally asleep. It looks like they may have passed away, but they're just taking a very serious nap. And then all of a sudden they'll be back up again and looking around for their buddies and eating and drinking. Very adorable. You watch them growing all the time. There's times where it looks like they're staying the same age, and then all of a sudden you'll realize that there are all these feathers and they're getting bigger, and there's times where they look incredibly awkward. Some might say dorky. Of course, they don't think so. They're getting to think they're cooler and cooler every day. And they get more active too. So if you start out with a smaller brooder box that might be a wash tub or a Rubbermaid or even a recycling box, cardboard boxes work really well too. In the beginning, it can be quite small because you're trying to keep it very warm for them. You're acting as the mother hen, and they don't need much space because they're eating, drinking, falling asleep. But as they get bigger, you'll start raising their food and water containers up, and you might end up adding on some extra space. So you might end up cutting a doorway, adding on another box, and you want to make sure they have a lot of room to run around and also to get some space from the heat lamp. Sometimes when you get chicks, especially if you're trying to get different breeds, you may end up getting some chicks that are super young, and then there are some that might be a couple weeks older but look the same age or get along just fine. Sometimes there'll be even bigger age ranges than that. So those birds will develop at different times, and they might all look the same, and then some birds will jump ahead. The birds that are further ahead will want to get away from the heat lamp faster than the younger ones. So if you have a bigger box as they're getting older, or multiple boxes as a ranch style, which we ended up kind of making, then you can have the heat lamp in one corner, maybe the food more on that side, and then have their water as far away always from the heat lamp as you can, so that there's less chance of bacteria building up and it stays colder and more fresh. And then the chickens that need to get away from the lamp, especially during the daytime, can be on that side. If there are any pecking order issues early on, then they also have a chance to get space from each other. And right now there's a couple chickens in the duck hutch, which are making quite a scene over there. So baby chicks, very fun, and again, it's an inexpensive thing. Their chick feed is very affordable. There's organic chick feed options. There's also medicated conventional options, which is a medication for coccidia. If you are raising organic birds and you can't or don't want to have medication, one of the things that you can do to help out is to bring them little tufts of weeds with the dirt still attached. And this would be once they're kind of fully feathered, looking maybe more like little pigeons. And that way they can eat through the dirt and start getting acclimated to their outside conditions at an earlier age, eat little bits of greens, but they love rooting around through the dirt, looking for little bugs and seeds and things like that. So that's some of the techniques that you can use to raise them organically.